Are we on?
We're live. We're live.
We're going. Cool. Not quite alive, but you know.
Yeah. The caffeine hasn't hit yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the quarantine blues.
I believe everybody's definitely catching up on rest and all the household chores and the daddy do list and honey do list.
Oh yeah.
Man,
I feel like I've been pretty busy though.
Yeah, I have been
during
too.
This whole thing.
No, I've been working. Yesterday was the lightest work day I've had, as far as like what I consider, real work, business work. So, things tied to the way I make money. But I've definitely had a little bit more time, and my wife has been attempting to fill that time. So, with activities.
I think right now a lot of us trying to figure out how to stay in business.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. For a lot of people out there, definitely that's one of the concerns. There's a lot of misinformation going on out there and a lot of confusion surrounding a lot of things. So that's why we wanted to get here together today just to chat about some of the stuff. I think it's important to say we're not accountants. We're not attorneys.
No.
Do your own research. I think having a great accountant and a great attorney is essential to any business. So definitely this is just our opinion.
Yeah, right.
So just research that we've done and things we've heard from our accountants and our legal team and, a mixture of things that we're researching and reading ourselves. So wanted to kind of take some time together today and put that stuff together for you guys.
Yeah, and talk about our experience so far during all this. Something that started out being a thing that didn't seem like such a big deal, and now it's turned into a huge ordeal.
Yeah, I think early on, even me, I just, because when things that affect everybody, they've never really affected us in the past. We just work through it. We just work. We just stay busy and keep moving forward. And I think at some point it literally has affected, I would say, everyone.
Yeah.
So.
And it doesn't even seem like something like this is possible.
I agree.
In this time,
Yeah, no, I'm highly surprised. A
lot of scientists that I follow have been talking about this for years. They've been saying this is going to happen. They warn about it, but then you hear it and you think, well, surely we have something in place that'll prevent the economy from shutting down.
Right.
Or we didn't have anything.
No, you're right.
I feel like, and we can maybe talk about some of this later, but I feel like after this, everyone's idea of what you need to stock at your house will be completely different.
I agree. Actually, I would have never, and I'm not the doomsday prepper guy. We have a partner that is, but I can guarantee you, he did not have hand sanitizer on his list,
right?
And nor did he have toilet paper.
I feel like after this, every American should have at least a 3-month supply, a 90-day supply of face masks.
Yeah, I think face mask. He wouldn't have had those. I think he has gas masks. But I think just in general, face mask, definitely something you got to add. Yeah. I'm definitely going to contribute a small amount of the square footage in my home just to have some basic necessities for my wife and for my kids, for myself.
Just some stuff that'll last a few months.
I'm not doing that right now, and that's definitely not what we're telling you guys. Don't stock up for a few months right now because there's such a shortage.
There's a short supply now.
Yeah, wait
buy
till
what you need, but
buy only what you need right now, and let's not contribute further to the problem. But in the future, definitely that's the plan. When inventories are back and stock is back. We're definitely saying, prepare.
My concern, too, is, after watching some experts on this or listening to what they have to say, it's likely this is going to come back in the fall, too.
Yeah.
And
what's it called, reoccurrence or resurgence?
Resurgence, yeah. And, I believe that a lot of this shutdown and all this could have been prevented if everyone had an adequate supply of N95 face masks or whatever mask would be effective against not just being exposed to the virus, but actually from spreading the virus. Yeah. Because if you were required by law to wear a face mask in public, and everyone were required, or there would be some kind of a fine, immediate fine, then it couldn't spread.
Yeah.
Or it couldn't spread as easily. It would mitigate a lot of the spread.
Maybe that's a portrayal of what's to come. Maybe when this thing restarts, whether it be in 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, when the economy starts back up, they start opening back other businesses that are deemed non-essential at the moment. Maybe that's what it looks like. Maybe they go ahead prior to that and go ahead and deem that if you're out in public, you should be wearing masks now today currently. I think they can't do it today because there's not supply, but I think in the future they'll be able to do that.
Yeah. When the next time we see one of these coming, everyone could be prepared for it.
I agree.
And have that, because you can't shut down the economy every time you have something like this.
I agree.
And this could be a more common occurrence,
Yeah.
as global populations increase. And
I think from now on, you're definitely going to have, at least for a little while, you're going to have the after effect of more people washing their hands, more people being conscious of it. And a lot of things that we're going to do from now on, or at least for a little while, are going to help stop the spread of other viruses.
right. And then you also think about, I mean, this year, there's going to be another 12 to 18 months before they have a vaccine for this thing.
Yeah.
So what about concerts and large events?
Yeah.
Are they going to cancel all those, or require you to wear masks at the events, or how's that going to work?
That could be fun depending on the event.
I think there's enough differences, like with what different states are doing. We're going to get a good idea of what the things are that work,
Right.
and what are the things that aren't going to work. That's just my
I think you're right.
guess.
Yeah.
Well, because you've got so many states that are taking different approaches.
Well, what New Orleans did didn't work.
Right.
Louisiana left the Mardi Gras,
Yeah.
let Mardi Gras happen, and it resulted in a lot of sickness.
Yeah, and you hate because it becomes political if you pick on a state. But if you look at some states' responses, like California and Washington, that got at it early, and
They've done pretty well,
exactly.
considering their populations. yeah,
Exactly.
they've done pretty well,
and then
especially
you see,
California.
Yeah, and you see other states that had similar populations that didn't get at it so early and didn't attack it as quickly, and you see how quickly and rampant it spread.
Well, New York's problem is just their overall population. though.
I agree.
I mean, they're
And it's so dense.
just in the city. And
Yeah.
New York City is there's 8 million people in all the boroughs,
Right.
and then another 8 million on Long Island. So
Yep.
it's just so many people on top of each other. I mean, if there's going to be a problem with the virus, it's going to be mostly there.
Right. No, I agree. So, guys, we wanted to come together today and just talk about some things. And obviously, everybody's been inundated with all these things that the government is trying to do. And I commend the government for coming together and getting some of these bills passed. We'll see how quickly the funds are available to people. I keep
Right.
hearing things like 3 days and 5 days and 10 days. And I just want to manage everybody's expectation. The systems have been crashing from what I'm hearing. Everybody's trying to file at one time, and it's going to take time. So I know it's not great advice, but be patient.
Yeah, you've done a lot of research too, man.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess there's a lot of things, but from a business owner's perspective, either a prospective business owner or current business owner, entrepreneur, I think it's key to talk about some of these things. So in every state, there's local business development programs, right? And they're offices, and they're spread throughout every state. And billions of dollars have been pumped into these organizations, right? And these organizations provide services at no cost. So it's one of those things where you can go in and you can work on the formation of new companies, work on existing companies that you've already got. You can do market research. They can help with marketing. They can help with loan applications and processes. Literally, they can help do business planning. So for companies that may not have the network already in place, like attorneys, like we do, or accountants, that can help guide through some things, those local business development offices can help navigate some of these things. So, previously they didn't have a lot of funds. And now, literally, as part of these government grants, these government programs, they're having billions of dollars pumped into them. So I think that's a local source that pretty much is open to everyone. Now, are they going to allow you to appear in person? Is it going to be a Zoom call? I'm not sure. But I definitely think it's a resource. And it may be like some of the banks have gone to, where it's by appointment only, and you got to call and schedule ahead, and they probably limit the number of people they have. Or they're going to use, technology to be able to have that conference or that call remotely.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good resource to use, and something it's not necessarily putting money in your pocket, but it is saving you money because you're able to get access to all these services for free.
Right.
So that's a big one. And then
It's a good resource. Yeah.
It's definitely a good resource. And I think the one that everybody's talking about.
I don't think going to your local office is going to be a good thing right now. There are literally thousands and thousands of people that are out of business. So.
No, that's true. So you may just have to reach out and look online, and it should be under local business development programs. If you type that in the internet and search, you should come up with your local office. And obviously I haven't had the time to look at every one, but I would imagine there's some type of online either form to fill out to get in line, or
I'm sure. Yeah.
Leave a voicemail, something to try and get information. Send them an email. to try and get your spot in line, because you're probably right. They're probably not accepting people. It's probably going to be something where they're going to do it remotely.
And they may just be forwarding people to the stuff that you found anyway.
They may be.
To go ahead and just self-apply for everything.
Yeah, they may be. They may be. So one of the things that everybody's talking about, they're like, it keeps coming up, this free $10,000, free $10,000.
Yeah.
So it's actually the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, right? So EIDL. And you need to understand that you're actually applying for a loan. The $10,000 is an advance, right? And you don't actually have to go through the loan, but you can get the $10,000 still.
Yeah.
So one of the things that everybody needs to understand is you can have the $10,000 waived and not repay it. There's certain circumstances that you have to do to qualify for that, and those might be expenses like continuation of payroll, rent, and expenses related to operating your business. But as long as you're taking that money, it's essentially, to me, the way I look at it is, and you and I were talking about earlier, actually, if you want to talk about it, what do you do if you don't use all 10?
You just give it back.
Yeah, so it's...
And also, before we get into that, people need to realize, or business owners should know that you can't use that $10,000 to buy more inventory for your business or to invest in your products and services. It has to go into certain operation expenses.
Right, and definitely, and again, talk to your accountant, talk to your people to make sure. But the purpose, we have to remember the purpose of all these funds are to keep the economy going, to keep businesses going, to keep people employed, right? To keep businesses in operation. So if you think about it from that point of view, if you're getting funds in, if you've been negatively affected, so this $10,000, the EIDL, you have to be able to, and you self-certify. So you go online, you fill out a couple pages of information, you self-certify that you've been affected negatively by what's going on, and you have to ask for it to be advanced, but you can get advanced the first $10,000. There's also an actual loan that's potentially taking place. So let's talk about the second part of that. Let's say you got approved for $100,000. The first $10,000 of which could be advanced to you, right? Well, what do you do with the other 90? The other 90 is a loan, right? That's the whole part of the EIDL, the last part being loan. The first 10,000 is forgivable, potentially is advanced. The other 90,000 is not forgivable with the EIDL. So,
but it is forgivable though, right?
No, not this part.
Oh, okay.
That's on the PPP.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
yeah,
I see.
Yeah. So on the EIDL, so the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, you can get with this loan, the first 10,000 can be advanced to you. They say in as little as 3 days. Good luck. Good luck.
It's going to take more than 3 days to apply.
I've been on the system several times with different companies, and it crashes.
Yeah.
So they're being overran right now with people attempting to get the funds. But remember, so it's a loan. You can get advanced $10,000. They say in as little as 3 days. I don't know if that's going to happen that quickly, right? But there is a second part of this, which you don't have to accept, but you also are applying for a loan. And so let's say that you got a $100,000 loan, 10 grand of which was advanced. The 10 grand you are able to essentially not pay back. It's forgivable. The other 90,000 you would have to pay back, and that loan looks like no more than 4%, right? It's a 30-year amortization, and it's not forgivable.
So it's kind of like a mortgage.
Right,
almost. Yeah.
right. So, you're going to use that money and put it back in. That $90,000, since it's not forgivable, you can use it for whatever you want to use it for because it's not going to get forgiven, at least not at this point.
So I guess if you had a company that was maybe debt-free and it was a pretty strong company, but it was unable to operate during this time, you could actually use that loan to improve that business.
That's right.
And have a really nice business loan for a good rate.
That's right.
But you would have to pay it back.
Yeah, on the $90,000 you would. That part, the $10,000 looks like it's forgivable. So the first part that's advanced, but this is important. Now, you can do this per business technically, right? And that makes sense, right? So imagine you have a plumbing shop.
You and I own multiple businesses,
Exactly.
So I mean, every company is a separate entity.
It's a separate legal entity.
This business isn't. It's not me.
Right.
It's its own thing, and it
has its own employees, possibly.
its own employees,
They're all
its own
separate,
structure.
independent.
It operates a certain way.
Its own rents, its own leases.
It's an independent entity.
That's right.
So it's like this business has nothing to do with this business or this business.
That's right.
Or this business.
So in theory, if you've got multiple businesses, you can apply for EIDL for each business.
Yeah, they all have their own expenses and their own needs.
Yeah, and I think another thing to look at with this, so not only can you apply for every business, but you go, and by the way, I didn't say this earlier, but you can go to SBA.gov to apply for this, right? There was some confusion out there about how do you apply, right? Is it a local bank? Is it this or that? But SBA.gov, it'll point you in the right direction. You should better get there. But another note here for employees, this is not for you, right? This is
Right.
only,
This is just for businesses.
that's right. Yeah, it's people,
Small businesses, really.
small businesses. That was the other key. You need to be a small business. to
Under
qualify.
500 employees.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
A friend of mine hit me up. I think it was he sent me this this very same deal in an email, and it was spelling out the loan you're talking about, the 10,000. And he's a freelancer.
Yeah.
So is this something that freelancers you think could
Absolutely.
benefit off of?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't
Right.
necessarily have to have a tax ID for a business. You can still use your Social Security number. Let's say that they didn't have
I
an
do.
LLC.
Yeah.
And you still could qualify. So self-employed.
If-
There's some, again,
Checklist of stuff.
yeah, there's a checklist of things you need to do your own research and
Talk
your
to
own
your
due
accountant.
diligence. Definitely. But yeah, in theory, freelancers, 1099, in theory, they could qualify if they're operating a business.
Right.
I mean, are you receiving income as an employee? Then pretty much, unless you've got a side hustle where you've got a business, let's say,
Right.
we had someone on recently that they have a day job, but they also do on the weekends or nights they have a secondary thing. So if you can prove you've lost income because of this,
Right.
you could in theory qualify.
Right. A little off topic, but since you bring that up, Jesse,
Yeah.
anyone that's in the film industry or entertainment, they're actors or comedians and stuff
All
like that.
subcontractors.
Yeah, they're all subcontract, but they all need to have an EIN number, and in a company. They all
I
need
agree.
a corporation or an LLC because of the tax laws. Because technically, and I'm pretty sure this is accurate. If you don't have your own business entity, you can't write off certain things on your taxes.
What about if you're a sole proprietorship? Most of the freelancers
That's
I
fine.
know
Sole
are-
proprietorship's fine, but you at least have to go through that process.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't just file it as just an individual.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you'd at least have to have a sole proprietorship.
Sure.
But I would recommend at least having an LLC, even if you're just an actor or
Yeah.
you have a small production company or something, just because of liabilities.
I agree.
Yep.
So.
No, I agree with you. So and another thing we need to talk about too, they're claiming this is a victory, and I think it is. But one of the things they don't talk about is there's a limit of funds, right? So it's first come, first serve, right? Which is probably why the systems are overwhelmed right now. I don't think it's going to run out in 3 days, 4 days, right? But at the same point, if you take, based on the initial funds available, there's a potential need for 45 million companies, and technically, there may only be enough funds to fund 1 million companies.
Which is
So
a big problem.
That's a major issue. So
Yeah.
a lot of people aren't talking about that, but there's a very good chance that there's not going to be enough funds to go around. Now, that's based on the packages that have been approved today. They may, in the future, expand upon those, and this $2 trillion stimulus might actually turn into a $3 or $4 trillion stimulus by the time
Right.
it's over. So it's really just going to depend on the.
Which is also scary.
Yeah, I know. So, well,
Maybe. I mean, it's going into business, so
it is.
it should
You're putting it back in the economy.
help the
so-
economy.
Yeah. And while we're on this segue here, but you're borrowing money at virtually zero, right? The government is.
Right.
Is this the time to get as much money as you can? I mean, do you put money where it needs to go and you put it back into the economy because it's basically free? I don't know. That's a good question, but
Maybe.
if there is a time to add debt, I think it's when you can get it at nothing, no cost, virtually no cost.
Yeah.
So and I don't think the government has a choice at this point.
No, there's
Yeah.
no other. I mean, unless you just let everyone go out of business.
Yeah,
and
which I think
then you have
would put a tremendous
unprecedented
amount.
bankruptcy.
Yeah, and it'd be a tremendous amount of strain on the system.
Yeah.
I think it'd be worse than the $2 trillion they've already.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sure.
those are some big keys.
And a lot of this money is going to be given back and paid back too.
That's right.
So that's another thing, because if you take, well, you'll get into the other part, but
Yeah.
if you just take the 10,000 up front, that's enough to get you through maybe this month or
Yeah.
a couple weeks, depending on the size of your company. Some companies it won't be enough
No, that's true.
at all, but you do that, and then you go into the next.
Yeah. So you can get into PPP, which is another thing that everybody's talking about, and so this is Payment Protection Program. Now, PPP, what is that? So this is basically based on payroll. So you're going to look at the last 4 quarters, and banks are going to treat this differently. Again, I say, one, you're going to need to talk to if you have a third party coming doing your payroll, you need to be having conversations with them. If you have an accountant, you need to be having conversations with them. If you have an attorney, you might, these things are financial services related, but you still might want to chat with an attorney, just to see if they've done any due diligence or research. But in general, what's going to happen is that you're going to be able to qualify for, I believe, and I'm hearing different numbers, up to 2.5 times your average monthly expenses over the last quarter related to payrolls. This is payroll expenses. So for simple math, let's say that your average payroll per week was $10,000, and they were going to give you 8 weeks worth, and you would get $80,000. If it was 10 weeks worth, they would give you $100,000. So this number is capped. PPP is capped up to $10 million per company, because obviously these are for companies with less than 500 employees. But imagine you had 499 employees on average, and let's say that on average your payroll costs were $300,000 a week. Well, they would pay you up to $10 million. So if it was 10 weeks at $300K, they would give you $3 million for that company to help them. Now, go ahead.
When you bring that up, it makes me think too, or it makes me question, why would they be willing to loan out, and this is also forgivable, correct? If
That's
it's
correct.
used correctly.
That's correct, if it's used correctly.
So why would they have already planned to loan out 2.5 times the amount of payroll for how many weeks?
Well, technically for the same
for
period.
the month, right?
Essentially,
or for the whole quarter.
Essentially, it's what you do with the funds once you get it. You have what you do with the following 8 weeks after you receive them is what determines if it's forgivable.
So they're already expecting
2 months.
2 months
at minimum.
of being down. So that's because you hear a lot of hopeful people say, well, maybe we'll be back in business by April 30th or May 1st. But I'm thinking June 1st.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is they're already planning for 2 months.
Yeah.
And some of these things could be extended. So right now what they're saying is, hey, what you do in the 8 weeks following, the period is going to determine. But they may go back and things that happen in the future if things aren't moving as quickly, and they may broaden the amounts and broaden the timelines. But right now, let's say your company received $100,000.
Yeah.
In theory, the 8 weeks following them receiving the $100,000, depending on what they did with it, would determine whether or not it turns into a loan or if it's forgivable. Right.
Yeah.
And so, from my perspective, and you and I were talking about this earlier, don't treat it like a loan. Treat it like a grant.
Right.
As long as you get, let's say you get $100,000, you use the money for your business. You use the money for rent, for wages, for salaries, for tips. For equipment that's deemed essential to the operation of the business, like certain things. As long as you use that money for the right things, whatever's left, you just give it back.
Yeah, if there's $20,000 left at the end, just send them a check for $20,000,
Yeah.
and that way you'll be forgiven the $80,000.
That's right.
And you gave the $20,000 back.
Yeah. Otherwise, what's going to happen is everybody's like, "Oh, it's a loan; you got to pay the money back." Well, no, you only have to pay back what's not forgivable. So you only use the money on forgivable expenses. And whatever's left, just don't use and send it back.
Now, what if it's like a restaurant or a bar, and they want to use maybe they have an extra $50,000 left over, and they want to do some renovation to their business with that money?
This would be
it'd still be a loan, right?
It'd still be a loan.
It'd still be a really low interest loan.
That's right. So that could be the other way. So if you aren't worried about it being forgiven, you can use that money to help put basically capital improvements into your business at a historically low rate.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
It's hard to get business loans, period, especially for a restaurant or a bar or something like that.
I agree, and that's another way to look at this is, even if it's not forgivable, if you can. I don't suggest taking on debt, and neither do you, unless you can properly deploy the money.
Yeah, it just has to make sense.
No, man, you're setting yourself up for failure. But if, don't spend money you wouldn't have spent otherwise. But if it's essential to your business and if it's going to help your business grow and help your business operate and help maintain your people, I think 100% you need to do that. You know?
Yeah.
So, I think, and so also to talk about this on PPP, whatever amounts that they get, when you get it, here's the crazy thing about it. They're going to defer the payments for a year immediately. So let's say that they said you qualified for $100,000. Let's use that number. You're not going to have payments until basically 13 months from now. So once you get approved, you're going to get immediate deferment for a year. Right?
It's also great because if you do make improvements to your company or your business, that's going to give you time to build the business back up once you reopen.
That's right.
And also you have plenty of time to get things reestablished and moving smoothly before you even have to pay anything back.
No, that's right. And then once that payment starts, what's happened is you're at no higher than a 4% rate. It's a 10-year amortization, so it's spread out across 10 years. And after the 1-year deferral, I'm sure what's going to happen is, prior to that rather, you're going to have the ability to have it permanently deferred or forgiven, right?
Right, yeah.
And so there's going to be some steps, and obviously I think this is going to be key. One, document. Work closely with your accountant, but I
Right.
think it's going to be key as what do you do with the money, right? Because prior to ever making the first payment, it's potentially available to have it forgiven, all of it or a part of it, and so I know with our businesses, a lot of our businesses, we're going to hit caps on several things. And that's just keeping our people employed and keeping the bills paid, the basic stuff. So most of what we would do would be forgiven.
Right.
So, and I don't think everybody's in that situation, but I think that's
No,
the case.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, one business I own is a small comic book store in Greensboro.
Right.
It's a really nice business, but it's not a big home run business or anything.
Comic Dimension,
It's more
shameless plug.
Oh yeah. There we go. It's more like a contribution to the community. But that business will probably use the minimum. I mean,
Right, that's true.
It just needs enough to keep it. I mean, don't get me wrong. That this is greatly impacting that business, and without this type of help, it could potentially go out of business very easily. Very easily. So this could be a lifesaver for that company.
Definitely.
But if it doesn't require all that to stay in business, then we'll just pay it back.
Yeah. Well, I think too that the good news about this, if I'm not mistaken, both the previous one we talked about, so the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and PPP, the Payment Protection Program, you do not have to sign as a personal guarantor.
Okay. Wow.
So if you're not using your personal Social Security number, if you were using an actual tax ID through an LLC, through a business, you're not having to sign as a guarantor to it. Now, I only bring that up to say I feel like they've put that in there so that
so if the business still goes under, you don't go with it.
You don't go with it. And so to keep people from being fearful from trying to, kind of go all in, because if they sign as a personal guarantor on it and the economy doesn't turn in 3 or 4 or 5 months, 6 months, and their company still goes under, they're at least not personally guaranteeing the funds. Obviously, it's still a terrible thing. They're losing their business. They're losing all their assets that go with it. All the time, money and energy they put into that business, but at least they personally aren't. It seems to be they personally aren't liable for it.
And also, sometimes when things change, like if a company closes for a while and they reopen, well, their business has gone somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's not as likely to happen in this situation because everyone's closed.
Right.
But it could happen. You could reopen your company and then all of a sudden you're just not seeing the numbers you were seeing before. Like you're down 30%.
And I actually think that's probably likely to happen. I think there's going to be pent-up demand, but the problem is going to be I think, like what you were saying earlier, I don't know if they're just going to let the floodgates open. I think they're going to possibly expand the businesses that they allow to open and slow roll this back up.
Right.
They may limit hours of operation. They may, they may not go, like you said, venues, big venues may still not operate. I mean, concerts, things like that. They may not immediately start allowing large gatherings,
If they do, I mean, there has to be some type of effort to protect the people that are there.
Yeah.
Like face masks or something. I just don't see any other way.
I agree.
I mean, I'd wear a face mask to a concert.
Yeah, I think you could get away with a concert.
It'd be a lot better than dying of a virus.
No, yeah.
Or infecting someone that is at risk.
I had a concert I was supposed to be at last weekend, actually.
Well,
and you and I have. Yeah.
Yeah, we just bought tickets to a concert, to a comedy show.
Yeah.
But
Rogan.
yeah, but it's in June. It may still happen.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but
Come on, Joe, pull the strings, man. We'll wear the mask.
but yeah, maybe they'll just extend it or
Yeah.
push it down later in the year, maybe. But I totally lost my train of thought.
Well, so we were talking about EIDL. I said, hey, everybody check out SBA.gov for information. So what's really interesting with this PPP, I was being told until literally late yesterday afternoon that you had to apply through the bank, right? And originally they were going to start allowing people to apply, I think, on the 1st, right? Well, now that's been pushed to actually tomorrow to Friday. I believe it's the 3rd. Tomorrow the 3rd? Yes. So it's been
What is
pushed.
today?
Yeah, right. What is today? So it's Thursday. But so now officially tomorrow you're supposed to be able to apply. And I thought only through the banks, right? Well, actually that's changed. It's either changed or I wasn't getting the right information. You can actually apply for that one on SBA.gov as well.
Okay.
So some banks actually are overwhelmed, and they're just not sure what to do. They haven't properly disseminated.
Disseminated.
Thank
I
you.
highly doubt that
The information.
SBA.gov has enough servers to accommodate everyone.
Well, that's this whole 3-day thing, man. Everybody's like, "Oh, I got it," but with the IDL, you're supposed to be able to get it in 3 days. The $10,000, the advanced part of it in 10 days. I mean, in 3 days. I'm sorry, but I just don't see that happening. It's been 3 days. I haven't even been able to get one to go through.
Yeah, you can't even get the site to work.
So, you know, I think that they're just some, and I've heard from employees and I've heard from other people that are applying for some of the other things that the government's offering, and they're just experiencing delays. There's just so much traffic.
Well, they could just take the NSA supercomputers that they take all of our information with, and they could use those to help back up the SBA servers.
Right. So, so obviously, if you guys want to get on SBA.gov, you should be able to find more information for EIDL, which is again the $10,000 advance, but the potential for a larger loan in addition to that. And then you can also check out on the PPP, which this is tied to payroll, right? So I hear people saying things like, "Oh, it's going to depend on your tax returns." I don't think it is, because it's specifically tied to payroll expenses in the last 4 quarters.
But it is applicable to rent too, right?
This is correct. Yeah, rent is one of the things.
Rent or mortgage.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, mortgage interest, I believe, not mortgage itself.
Oh, okay.
Mortgage interest is able to be written on, is able to help make the payment non-payback, to not be able to pay the loan.
Well, technically, if the company, here's a business advice, I guess. So if the company owns, or say an individual owns a small business,
Right.
and they own the building that one of their businesses operates inside of, technically that building should be a separate entity than that business.
Yep.
That business should be leasing from that building,
I agree.
and then the building wouldn't have a problem because the company could keep paying its rents
That's right.
to the building entity.
Yep.
And then there's not an issue.
I agree with you completely. And if you don't have that, again, go talk to an attorney and an
Or
accountant.
accountant, yeah.
You know, but essentially, and here's the other thing I think what you're getting to as well, is that you as a tenant might need help. But don't go apply for help as a tenant or as a landlord if you don't need it.
Right.
If your tenants are paying, right, don't go apply for help, because there's a limited amount of funds.
Right. Some people really need it.
Some people really need it. And don't just, it's kind of like going in, don't be an asshole. Don't go in and buy 10 packs of toilet paper when you only need 1 pack, right? Like, there's just some things. If you don't need the funds that are out there and available, don't take them. That way people that do need them will get them.
Because they're very limited.
They are very limited. Everybody thinks that this is an unlimited number. It's not. Actually, I think probably 1 in 45 or 1 in 50, somewhere in that range of businesses that qualify are actually going to be able to get the funds. And so I've heard some people say, "Oh, well, not everybody's going to apply." I don't know. In this situation, I think a lot of people are going to apply.
A lot will, yeah. I
And-
mean, there may be some businesses that were just not doing well anyway, and maybe they look at this as an opportunity to get out without
Maybe.
losing a lot of face, or
Yeah.
and I think if you did want to close a business, this is your opportunity, because a lot of landlords will be understanding.
100%.
Because that's another thing too. I mean, if you close a company, you have to deal with all of the responsibilities of that company a lot of times, and
That's
that
right.
can be very expensive. We've both experienced that
That's right.
multiple times.
That's right.
So
Sometimes it takes more money to get out of business than it does to get into business.
that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Especially when we first started. You remember some of those, man? Like, you
Oh,
just
yeah.
didn't know what you didn't know.
Yeah. It's just,
And you got to exit something, and cost you 6 figures to get out of it.
we owe what?
Wait a second. Didn't we tell you we were closing? We're in a...
Yeah. That's not possible.
No. So those are I feel like these two big things, some of us have been conflated. They've been joining the $10,000, the EIDL with the PPP. They're actually two separate things. And you could qualify for both,
Yeah.
right? And
Well, but I guess technically the $10,000 becomes part of the PPP if you do it right.
it could.
If you work with your accountant and
Well,
the money's
It could be in
used
addition
properly.
to it. Yeah, it could be in addition
Be
to
in
it.
addition to it, yeah.
Yeah, because the PPP is based on the last 4 quarters. They're going to take the last 4 quarters, and they're going to look at your payroll expenses, right? And But let's say that you qualify for more than what they're going to give you, then it's possible the 10 grand doesn't necessarily count towards the PPP. It's in addition to it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And these specifics you need to get to an accountant. But you could, in theory, you could get the EIDL plus a loan plus qualify for PPP.
Right.
And then you can do some really other creative things.
And before you spend any of the, or invest any of the money, talk to your accountant to make
100%.
sure that you're doing it properly.
100%.
Because you don't want to get into a liability situation,
I
especially
agree.
if your business is already struggling anyway.
Yep.
That could definitely do you in.
No, I agree completely. Yeah. And there's some other really crazy things that have happened, and I don't know that these things really go hand in hand for business owners, but some business owners do have health savings accounts, right? And I know a lot of employees have health savings accounts. So if you have a health savings account, this is a small thing, but they've raised the health savings accounts limits. So I think individually you're up to $3,550. As a family, you're up to like $7,100. And obviously, you have to use this for qualified medical expenses. But you literally can take and contribute to your health savings account. And this is a way to avoid paying taxes on some of your income. So if you lower the amount of your taxable income, let's say you make $100,000 a year, but you're able to put $7,100 into a health savings account. Now instead of making $100,000, you've made $92,900. Right?
Yep.
So you're taxed on a smaller amount, right? And right now, you've got till July 15th, I believe, to be able to put in and fund these health savings accounts. They may extend that, right? But you can take the funds that are invested in that HSA and you can actually invest them into the stock market. There's different things you can do with that money. It's not a huge thing if you don't have an HSA, but it's something.
Yeah.
You know.
Before we move on, though,
Yeah.
On the business loans too. We have companies that'll be fine
Yeah.
through this, but back to the comic book store, that's a company that could easily be taken down by something like this. And the good thing about these loans is they're forgivable.
Yeah.
So, just say if they were not forgivable and that business had to take a loan, I don't know they could handle that.
No. The loan itself.
It hasn't. A business like a comic book store, it makes enough money to stay in business, to provide the services and products it does, to pay the staff.
Yeah.
Which is not a whole lot. But it doesn't make extra money.
Right.
It's not just out there killing it. So if it had to take on an extra expense, that could put it under.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
So really, what you're saying is if they weren't willing to defer or completely mitigate the loan,
It may be better just to close the business.
right?
Yeah.
And you hate to think that way, but on some businesses out there, if the writing was already on the wall, again, I come back to this thing, it might be a good time to exit,
Right.
gracefully exit.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, but sometimes the number one mistake I think small business owners make, and I've made personally, is not knowing when to give up on something.
And getting too attached to a
Yeah.
business.
Sometimes, we got to remember that failure is part of the process, and sometimes in that process, you need to close something. You need
Right.
to end something that you started because it just didn't make sense. It
And
just didn't work.
You can't win them all. You just
No.
have to win most of them.
That's right. That's right. But if you take ones you are winning with and you carry ones you're losing, and you do that for an indefinite period of time, that's a bad thing to do as well.
You're still losing.
You're still losing.
Yeah. You're losing something. And like another thing too, with the comic book store, we actually have some other programs that we were about to start at that.
Right.
And new, I can't talk about it yet, but we were going to add some new revenue streams to that business that would have greatly improved that business. And we'll still do it once things get back to normal.
Right.
So this is great for that, to help us reach that level. But if you have a company that's not doing very well and you have no new ideas, nothing that you have no plans to add anything to it and make any changes to make
Right.
it better or improve it, then maybe you should just close it, because otherwise you're just going to use this Band-Aid to get you through this situation and then
Right.
reopen and be in the same
Yeah.
bad business you're already in.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think if you're in a business and it doesn't have any potential to do more than what it's doing, unless you're just really happy with it,
Yeah.
that's fine. It's not costing you any money. That's fine too. But
Yeah.
I feel like if you have a company that's maybe costing you money, it's not it's not growing, it's not it's not improving. Maybe you've seen declines in business. This would be a great opportunity to get out of business, or maybe do something else.
No, I mean, exactly.
Hey guys, I've got a question, and I need help from professional businessmen such as yourself. I've been, as you know, kind of a freelancer for a long time, but this has been my first year where I've really, it's like, okay, everything kind of depends on this and some of my wife's student loans to make it through the year.
We're going to talk about the student loans in a minute.
Yeah. Oh, good. So what would you do if you're in my shoes? Like, I've got a certain amount of debt just from software and computers and gear and stuff for my business that I've built up over a few years. Not a lot, under 10 grand.
Yeah.
But would it be unethical or bad for me to apply for just the $10,000 loan, use it maybe to knock off my business's debt, and then use the rest just to kind of...
You just need to talk to your accountant to make sure you can do that. But
Yeah.
I think that's fine, because you can invest in the essential equipment for your company.
Well,
So
and the key is
that may be possible.
and you're not trying to get the $10,000 to wrap things up. You're still obviously
It would go to survival.
you go to survive. Your business is ongoing, right? And
Yeah.
that's the whole purpose of these funds. And so part of this is, and I know you don't pay yourself a lot, but part of this is that you do have a payroll expense, right? Even if you're self-employed.
Right.
Yeah, it's just called my bills.
Right. Well, and I think some of the structure that may need to be involved, definitely check with an accountant, but I think I think you should take, because you are a small business, I think you should take advantage of whatever you can, because obviously, I mean, you're here working,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my only gig going on right
Exactly.
now.
So-
all
so-
my other ones have been shifted and pushed to the side.
Let me answer the question legally.
Yeah.
All you have to do is be able, one, you self-certify we're talking about the EIDL again. So this is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. This is the 10 grand that everybody's referencing, right?
Right.
That can go up to 100,000.
Yeah. And I believe it goes up to 100 grand. But I was using 100 grand as an example earlier. It may be.
Oh, okay.
It's essentially just a small business loan. The first 10,000 of which is advanced, right?
Yes.
Right.
So the only thing you have to be able to do legally and ethically is be able to certify that you've been affected negatively by what's going on.
Okay.
That's all you have to do. So if you do that, you're operating completely legally, completely ethically.
Okay.
Have you been affected negatively, right, as a
Right.
business owner?
Sure.
Right. And if you can answer yes to that question, you're entitled to the $10,000.
And you have been. I know you have, because
Yeah.
I know you've lost a lot of jobs because of.
Or they've gotten shifted
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
no man's
Yeah.
land.
So-
yeah.
And
Now-
those jobs may go away.
Exactly. Now the people out there that have these fictitious jobs, right? The
Right.
people they pretend work on Instagram, right? Those people, and I'm
Influencers.
attacking a whole segment of people that I don't know the realities of what they have individually.
Right.
But in theory, the people that have fake things, I think they should not be applying.
Right.
Yeah. If you're not losing anything, you don't need anything.
Don't flaunt $1 million $1 million in a handbag on Instagram last week, and then this week you need $10,000 to operate your business. That doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So I think there needs to be some common sense to it.
Yeah.
I can tell you personally, anything that I get, this is not for me.
Yeah.
All of our businesses, our key people are still employed.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And if they're not employed, any of those other people are not employed, we're trying to help subsidize
Exactly.
anything that they're getting. And even if it has to be me writing it or Neil writing it as
Sure.
a personal donation so that they can still qualify for other benefits,
Oh, yeah.
we're trying to work with our people, right? I'm not personally looking for any of these funds for me
Right.
personally. These
Well,
are all about continued operation of
that's-
business.
Just a way to be taking care of your people. Like if
Exactly.
I'm on a job, I don't get paid. I still pay this guy that I brought with me.
100%.
You know.
100%.
Another good point, though, that you bring up is employees. And if you do own a small business, you should immediately lay off all of your employees and let them use these incentives.
Until you're approved, I think that's a good way to
Because you may not get those loans. And
unless you can financially afford it and you're just not worried about it.
yeah, I mean, most small businesses can't, though.
Right.
I mean, there are exceptions,
Yeah.
but I know in the past, another business partner and I, we went through some issues with the company. We were going through some big changes. We lost a really big account. It was a complicated issue, but we kept all of our staff employed for about 3 months, and it was a huge burden.
Oh yeah, it'll bankrupt you if you're not careful.
Yeah, it was.
No, I think as an employer, be careful promising your employees things, because here's the key. One, you don't know that you're going to qualify for the loans,
Right.
or the advance, or for it to be waived. Secondly, you don't know how long it's going to take you to get the funds. Thirdly, if you're not an accountant, you're not an attorney, you're not entirely sure that you can back pay people. I've heard people saying, "Oh, I can back pay you." Hey, don't file employment. I think the purpose of all these things is so that companies cannot lay off people. But if you've already been laid off, if you've already been terminated temporarily, I think you should apply, and we'll talk about these things here in a little bit. I think you should get all the benefits that you can get, and if your company hires you back, then great.
Well, I think what it is it's I think it's almost set up where you can lay off your employees for a month and they'll be fine, because there are enough relief incentives to sustain those employees until you get your relief,
Right.
and then you can hire them back with the relief.
That's right.
Which
that's
is
right.
it's a good program. I mean, I'm still a little concerned about the payback in the future, but it's the best option we have as far as I can tell.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that part, definitely.
And when I say the payback in the future, I mean for all of American society,
Right.
paying back.
Yeah, at some point, there's a cost to this.
It has to go back somehow.
Yeah, there's definitely a cost, and obviously, I think you and I are young enough that we're going to be paying for it. Our children are definitely going to be paying for it, but at the end of the
For
day,
the rest of our lives, yeah.
yeah, this is something that we've got to address for sure. So another big thing I want to talk. So if you guys have a 401k, anybody out there has a 401k, this is huge. Okay. If you're in an age bracket where there's forced distributions, that has been stopped. You don't have to take a distribution if you don't need it. Okay. But check this out. You can take out up to $100,000 right now without penalty, without paying any income tax. You can access up to $100,000 penalty free. Okay. Now that can be used. Here's the crazy part about that. That can be used to do anything, right?
Right.
To live, to survive, to help. There's actually ways you could do some hacking here with some of these things. There's ways to use that money for your business and potentially count as a qualified expense. But you've got up to 3 years.
Definitely talk to your accountant about that one.
Yeah, definitely talk to your accountant. You've got up to 3 years to pay the money back. There's extended payback terms. And if you do that, again, tax-free, penalty-free, right? So that's huge. You can access up to $100,000. And I know there's a lot of people out there that have 401ks, and that money's been unable to be accessed for fear of paying the taxes, the current taxes that are due, and you're in theory right now when you're working, you're in your highest tax bracket.
Right.
So ideally, the premise behind a 401k is to delay paying taxes until you're older and you're earning less income, and your tax rate should drop in theory. Well, right now you can take it even in a higher income bracket, and in addition to that, not pay the penalty. I believe it's 10%. The penalty is so. So this is a great time to access the 401k if you need to. Now's an awesome time to access those funds if you've got a purpose for them. Don't just get the money.
Don't take a big vacation.
Yeah, don't take the money and spend it on things that you would not. It makes no sense to go on
It has
vacation.
to be an investment.
It's got to be. If it's a sustaining your family, that's one thing.
Right. Yeah.
If you're investing into yourself, I'm all about that. You want to become a realtor? Great. If you come out of this crisis and you're not better than you were when you went into it as far as like mentally, if you haven't prepared yourself, if you haven't learned a new task or a new trade, if you haven't educated yourself, if you didn't come out with a plan, man, you just did yourself a major injustice.
It's a good time to regroup.
Yeah, it is, man.
Yeah.
Like I want to
reevaluate.
I want to come out of this and there be a record. I've been a realtor for a decade. I own a real estate firm. I want to see us come out of this and just be like record number of realtor applications. Like just something. You guys got to do something with this time. So if you want to take that money and you want to invest in yourself.
Don't spend all this time watching Netflix.
No, do not be binge watching Netflix, man. I get it. This whole Tiger thing is popular and all these other things are popular right now.
It's so crazy.
I want to see people binge reading, right?
Right.
Binge listening to podcasts, educational, informative things. Learn something, during this time. You get all this free time. Everybody has been telling us for years, there's not enough time.
Now you've got a lot of time.
Man, and I said it was bullshit back then. Now you got all the time.
We still don't have enough time. But
yeah, man.
We have more time, though.
Yeah, I do have more time. And guess what? I'm reading more, and I am spending more time.
I am too. I'm reading more, writing more.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be productive. Like, I am getting to spend more time with my wife and my kids.
That too,
right?
yeah.
I am, but I have to say this as a preface. I love my wife. I love my kids. I am not the guy. I don't care if I don't have to physically show up every day. The company operates, right? That's the true definition of owning a business. Does it function without you there on some level, right?
Right.
It does, but I like to work, right? I got to find
If you
something to
structure
do.
it right.
If you structure right.
You still have to.
You got to be involved at some level.
Yeah, you have to be there
Man,
somehow. Yeah.
if you don't manage your money is going to go away. What's it say? Fool and his money are soon departed, right? Like,
yeah.
You got to stay on top of it, man. But I like to work. That's the other side of it. So I spend time with my wife and my family, my kids. But after a little bit, I'm pulling my hair out and I'm ready to go do something, right?
Well, all the gyms have been closed too. That's usually my outlet for stress.
Yeah.
Training. So I've been doing a lot of hiking, which is awesome.
Well, you do have a partner that owns a private gym.
Yeah, I'll start using that too. I may use that today, actually.
Yeah. But anyway, shameless plug.
You need to use it too.
Yeah. Here's what's bad.
Maybe we should both use it today.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we will. Maybe we
Yeah.
will. Listen, it's 40 yards, literally, not even 40 yards from my desk where I sit every day, and
Yeah.
I know it's there.
It's a nice gym.
I have no excuses. But anyway, back to this. So 401k, if you have a 401k, awesome, great. You've got access to up to $100,000. Again, no penalty, no income tax. 3 years. You got 3 years. You got extended payment options to pay the money back, right? And what does that mean? You're literally taking a loan on your own money, and you've got up to 3 years to pay it back, and then you're back to the same retirement plan you had. So if you can pull the money out, put it to use right now, when the economy recovers, when you recover, when everything's good, you put the money back in your 401k, it's like it never happened.
Right. Yeah.
And the government is taking literally a bath on this and saying, hey, look, we're going to let you access the money so that you can survive and so that you can move forward. And I think that's a great thing. I really like the 401k options that they've presented people with. If you don't have a 401k, then that whole part wasn't for you.
Right.
Maybe you'll sign up for one now.
I don't have a 401k, so.
I don't have a 401k.
But a lot of people do.
Yeah.
A lot of people in like executives
They do.
and just employees have
Yeah.
401ks. Yeah.
Yeah, and this little blib about why I don't have a 401k, and I'm going to go off on a tangent briefly, but so the whole theory.
Let me use the restroom
Yeah,
real
go
fast.
ahead. The whole theory behind delaying taxes, so Roth IRA, 401k, et cetera, the whole theory behind, hey, I'm going to delay the payment of these taxes until the future, doesn't work for me, because what they assume is, and what the pitch is that when I'm older, when I'm in a tax bracket, when I'm in an age range rather, that I'm going to be taking distributions of this money, right, then I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket. So I'm going to be taxed a small amount. But that's very hard for me to believe. One, because as a business person, as an entrepreneur, I don't think I'm going to be making less money at, say, 65 or 70 than I am at 30 or 35 or 20.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense to me, because everything, I'm going to Warren Buffett. I'm going to be working. I want to be like my grandfather. I'm going to be like, my father does not have to work. My father runs 80, 90 hours a week. Right? I like to work. I imagine I'm going to work until I die.
Yeah.
Right? So if that's the case, I don't anticipate my income going down, which means I don't anticipate my tax bracket dropping.
Right.
So why would I delay paying tax if I think my tax bracket is going to remain the same and or go up? And then in addition to that,
Right.
as the economy's debt goes through the roof, obviously we just had $2 trillion more plus added.
Right.
Do you think the tax rate is going to be lower in 40 years? I think it's going to be higher. So for me, my personal opinion, again, consult with an accountant, consult an attorney, do your own due diligence, common sense it, get the advice of people that you care about, like people that you trust their opinion,
Right.
but then apply it to yourself. I don't think I'm going to make less money at 70 than I do at 35.
Right.
And I don't think the tax rates are going to be as low as they are today.
Right.
So I don't want to delay paying tax. I'm not going to use that method. I avoid or delay paying tax legally through real estate, which is a whole nother thing we can talk about in another video. But I want to use all the things that are there for business owners today. And for me, a 401k is just not part of that plan, or Roth IRA. And there's some other reasons. There's some income limits and things like that. But just some things for you guys to think about if you are considering a 401k and you own a business. You may want to really thoroughly look into it and see if it makes sense. Also, what type of person are you? Are you the guy that is working to 65 or 60 or 62 or whatever age? Are you working to a certain point and then you're just going to check out and your income is going to drop? If that's you, maybe these things make sense, right? If you're look at your father, look at your grandfather, look at people that are your mentors, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be family. What are they doing?
Right.
Right? And it's very likely that the people that you follow that are your mentors, the people that you look up to, it's very likely that you're going to probably do something similar to what they're doing.
Sure.
So, I can tell you, at least for me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
Personal opinion. Now, if you're an employee, you're on a different path than I'm on.
Right.
A 401k makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
Right. And there's other things you can do within a 401k. I believe you can take that money and use it as a way to invest in stocks or use it as a way to invest in real estate. Same thing with Roth IRA or traditional IRA. But definitely, again, find a good accountant and have those kind of conversations.
For sure.
And be careful. An accountant shouldn't be giving you business advice, but they can tell you how the business decisions you're going to make will affect you as far as from a tax perspective.
Right.
So just be careful that your accountant doesn't become your business coach.
Right. I've been told that at least like watching podcasts and stuff for freelancers and stuff, at least this one guy perspective was Roth IRAs are a good way to go. But I can see that in some kind of level because like working some stuff like being a camera person, well, your body's going to fail eventually.
Yeah.
And so it's something to plan for.
Yeah, it just depends on, you have to look at your specific situation.
Right.
What is it you do? What is your plan?
Right.
Right? Like if you're in a physically tedious position,
Sure.
there's a good chance that there's a limit to that, right?
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. I always tell people it's not about what you make, it's about what you do with what you make.
Right.
I know people that make $1 million a year that spend more than $1 million a year, right? Yeah. I know people that make $30,000 a year that are saving $10,000 a year.
Sure.
Over a long term, I get it.
Skills.
You think the $1 million guy is going to come out better, but the guy that's saving $10,000 a year that's investing that eventually can catch the guy that's a high income earner.
Oh yeah.
Because it's all about what are you doing with the money. So you take your camera guy, your operator, right? What is he doing with the money he's making?
Right.
Right. So that may change his mind because.
Sure.
And guess what? Today a 401k, today a Roth IRA is great. At what point in the future it doesn't make sense for you anymore? You can stop funding them.
Right.
Right, which is another great thing about them, right?
Sure.
So, and I'm not dogging them. I would say the lion's share of America, Roth IRAs are great options and 401ks are great options as long as you meet the requirements.
Right.
I think for the vast majority of people, they're great options.
Right.
Yeah, Roths are safe.
Yep. So, I'm not a big. And here's another reason: I'm not dogging the government. I believe in less government. I don't want this emergency plan or this things that I don't want to plan for 70 as far as through some of these government devised plans. That's not what I'm about. I want to make my own business moves. I've got real estate. I've got all these other things that I want, and I'm developing my own retirement plan.
Right.
And I hate to get on a real estate kick, but I can do better, I believe, than the 401k and the Roth IRA or traditional IRA myself through real estate.
Sure.
And I think that that's an ever-evolving thing.
Right.
But I think that is true today anyway.
Oh, yeah.
For me, personally.
Right on.
Personally. So anyway, 401ks, access up to 100K, 3 years, et cetera, et cetera. So you get it for free. Second to that, this is not a huge thing, but as a business owner, this is something that's available to you and I even, and something that's available to any of our employees or even business owners that have student loans. You got 2 months, no interest, no payments. Now, I think you need to log on. I don't know if it's automatic, but I would log on to your student loan, and I think they're federally backed student loans. Let me say that. So if you got a loan related to college that's not federally backed, that's not through the Fed, then I don't think that this qualifies.
Right.
But log in, and you probably have to probably just a simple request, but you have 2 months, no payments, no interest. So no interest will accumulate and no payments. It'll give some relief to our staff or to anybody else that's got a current payment that's due. But in addition to that, something unique has happened. So as a business owner, I can, and I'm not saying that every business owner wants to do this, but in theory, I can gift up to $5,250 to every employee, right? As far as an employee that has a student loan. I could gift a $5,250 payment to that student loan. And for me, I believe it's a dollar for dollar write-off, which means, literally I'm getting full tax credit for that $5,250 donation.
Which is incredible, yeah.
It's huge. And on top of that, the employee is receiving the money tax-free as well, even though a payment's being made. So there's
basically forgiving their student loan
exactly
for that part of it.
Yeah. So not only are we going to do a deferral, not are we going to require no payments. I like how the government does this. Hey, look, the people that can't make the payment don't make the payment, and hey, we're not going to charge you interest. Oh, by the way, if you have an employer that's willing to make the payment, he can give up to $5,250. So what did they just do? Hey, the people that can't do it, you don't have to give us any money. Hey, the people that can, or they have an employer that can, you can give us some money. So I think what they're figuring out here is here's a way to bring money in for student loans,
Yeah.
right, and give people a break that don't have that option.
Right.
So I think it was very creative for them to be able to do that.
It's another way to bring, it's all federal money anyway,
That's
so
right.
it's bringing it back into the system.
Exactly. And I think that's what, if you look at all these plans, I think that's what this is about. Providing relief to those that need it and providing incentives for those that don't so that they can spend money to put back in the economy.
Yeah.
So I think it's very creative the way they did this. So, you know, and again, consultant accountant, but let's think about this. The 5250 is a donation, right? But I'm paying an expense, right? I wonder if that would be considered an allowable expense under PPP or EIDL. Is this a question, right? Do your own research, talk to your accountant. I'm just curious about that. Because wouldn't that be crazy if you could include it? Let's say we take the 5250, the employees that qualify, you divide it out over the next few months, and you give every employee that qualifies that has it, you give it to them as a weekly allowance to their student loan directly, and maybe you consider it part of their payroll, and maybe you're able to do it as a qualified expense. I don't know. Question mark there, but
Good question.
it's a good way to use it again to take money for these and put it to your to the benefit of your
If
employee.
that can be done, that's really good for
I think it can, man.
for everyone, I think, because
It's a benefit to the employee.
yeah, it's an incentive.
I feel like it benefits the employees, medical expenses, those things are all allowable. So I would think that it would be an allowable expense.
And I think the better your employee's financial situation, the better the employee.
I agree completely.
So
Yeah, I agree completely. So student loans, I think that doesn't necessarily hit everybody, but if I was to say there was another bubble, other than the housing one that everybody had take place, I would have said prior to all this stuff happening that student loans were a massive bubble. Obviously, the lion's share of which is non-forgivable, and you can't discharge it.
It's crazy,
in
yeah.
a bankruptcy. And thirdly, I would have said student loans a month ago. I would have said student loans. I would have said the housing is rebuilding to a bubble again, and I would have said credit card debt is another future bubble. So anyway, I think this helps with
credit card debt for sure.
Credit card debt for sure. I think this
Yeah.
helps with one of the other bubbles that nobody can do about, which is the student loans. There's also some extra things for paid leave. I don't have all that stuff memorized, but there's basically some federal money out there to help cover paid leave for some of your employees. So definitely, again, do some research, reach out and look into that, talk to your accountant. And essentially for businesses, what this is going to do is just allow, if you've got staff that are affected by this, or have family that are affected or have young kids and are able, they're going to be able to cover some of that paid leave expense, right?
Yep.
And again, this might tie back to some of the other loans that you've gotten as a qualified expense as well. So we'll see how some of this ties in together as time goes by. There's a small thing here too. So the people that can help, and I think this is key, I've got some neighbors that I've gotten supplies for, not because they financially couldn't afford the supplies. They just, at the age range they're in, they wanted to limit the amount of times they go out.
Right,
So
yeah.
I was just trying to help them out. That's a good example. I didn't ask for the money back, right? And I think that would qualify. We'll see. But you can actually get a donation bonus. So up to $300, which I know is not a lot, but if you want to help donate to any of the causes that would qualify for what's going on, people that have been affected by this, the government's saying, hey, in addition to the standard deduction, we're going to give you up to a $300 donation credit.
And that includes individuals too, right?
That's right.
Not people that don't own businesses. They can actually have a $300 deduction
That's right.
from their taxes.
So, and if you're in a 30% tax bracket, basically you're saving about $90. But the way I look at that, and again, talk to an accountant, the way I look at that is if you're financially capable to donate and you have a cause that you believe in or people you believe in, you want to give $300, you're going to get $90 back in the form of tax savings. So
Now, could they buy $300 in supplies for a family that needs help?
I would think that they could.
Should be.
Keep the receipts, and I would think that, and you need definitely talk to an accountant.
Right.
There may be a rule that says you have to donate it to an authorized charity. I'm not sure.
Oh. Okay.
So you definitely need to check with an accountant, but I would think that would qualify. If you go to the local homeless shelter, obviously they're going to have they're going to be a nonprofit anyway, right? So it just really depends. And again, I would ask that question, but if you are able to give, I think it's a great idea, and it's just another way the government's saying, hey, look, they're trying to put money out there to help people, but they're also trying to incentivize people with money to help, right? So that's another way, and I know it's not a lot, But that's another way to get people that have the means to be able to put money towards causes they care about. And I think there's a lot of people. I was already doing things. The $300 thing is not even a drop in the bucket for me, for what some of the things I wanted to do. But there's an extra reason, if you needed one, there's an extra reason to find something that something that you can get behind and put some money with.
A good way to get people to help each other.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which I think is also very important. I think we should save the best one for last. So let's.
Before we move on, though, I do want to say that these relief efforts and all these stimulus packages and loans and or grants are great. They really are. But we would rather just still be in business.
Man, 100%. This is a mess. I would much rather operate. I'm not a big fan of government handouts.
We're still losing a lot of money.
No, yeah, man. This is and all these businesses that are qualifying for these things. This is just to help the burn, to help the hurt.
This is just to keep you moving.
This is a Band-Aid.
Yeah. We talk about keeping momentum. We've lost all momentum.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I agree with that completely. So next thing we're going to get to is going to affect a lot of people that are real estate owners. So if you own a property, pay attention. If it's a single family home, 1 to 4 units, right? 5 units or more is typically considered commercial. They definitely class you differently. But if you're single family, you own up to 4 units. So it could be a quadplex, triplex, duplex, or it sounds like 4 single individual family homes. You can qualify for a forbearance, right? You got to reach out. First thing is, one, is it federally backed loan? Federally rated or federally backed? You got to reach out to your mortgage company, right? And I can imagine that there's going to be long hold times on your mortgage companies. Just go ahead and plan for that. Yeah. But get in line. But as a 1 to 4 unit, you can get up to 90 days, right? Which means that it's possible not to make a mortgage payment for up to 90 days. And then there's a 90-day extension possible, as to my knowledge right now. So literally, you could go 3 to 6 months without having to have a mortgage payment.
Which is very helpful.
Extremely.
Yeah.
And again, these aren't guaranteed. You need to look at it. And then if you have more than 5 units, so let's say you have a small apartment complex, you can go through the same process, reach out to your mortgage company. You can get a forbearance for 30 days at a time. Now, the crazy part with the apartment complex is it looks like you have to re-notify them every 15 days. So when you first apply, they're going to give you 30 days. 15 days prior to the end of that 30 days, you got to let them know that you need another month, right? And as of right now, it looks like to me you can only do a 30 plus 30, so they can give you 2 months. So the government here is incentivizing. They're saying, hey, look, what I'm getting from this is people that own 5 units plus, those are typically like small apartment complexes. Those people are probably more apt and more capable of handling this, whereas people that own single-family homes up to 4 units are probably going to be a little harder affected. And I think that's why they're giving more consideration to those people that maybe have one home or that has multi-unit. So I feel like that's what it at. But here's the key. When you first of all, don't just stop making your mortgage payments, right? Because it will crash your credit.
Also, people that have these duplexes or quadplexes, it's likely that their tenants are going to receive enough relief to keep paying their rent.
That's right.
So they may not have an issue.
No, that's right. And again,
I think this is better for people
don't use it if you don't need it. This comes back to this whole thing. Like, there are benefits out there. It's like you have, for me, it'd be like, hey, I own a successful business, but I go out and apply for food stamps. That doesn't make any sense.
No, yeah.
Just because there's a benefit available, if you don't need it, don't use it, because other people do need it.
Now, if you have a decent-sized mortgage and your pay is cut in half, even with the incentives, then maybe you need it.
Yeah, and it's a temporary thing to help you get through. I agree completely. So here's the key, though. You got to call in advance. Don't just stop making your payments, and then 6 months from now, when you're evicted, or 3 months from now, when you're gone and they foreclosed on your house, go, wait a second, I didn't think I had to pay my mortgage. You have to ask for it, right?
Right. Yeah, they're not gonna, it's not a given.
No, it's a forbearance, but you have to ask for it.
You have to be responsible.
Be a responsible adult, reach out, do your due diligence. But here's the kicker. Listen, man, in life it's all a negotiation, but we got to get it in writing.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it has to be in writing or it's not real.
No, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I don't care what they tell you on the phone. You got to get it in writing, right? So what that also means is we need to listen. The money just doesn't disappear. You still legally owe that mortgage payment, right? So what happens?
It's still your liability.
It's still a liability. So we need to negotiate how we're going to repay it, right? I would suggest that you say, hey, let's use the single family option, and you say, hey, I'm getting 90 days worth of forbearance. Let's just take 3 months and add it back on at the end, right? So if I owed 270 months, then I'm not going to pay for the next 3 payments. So instead of owing 267, I'm going to owe 270.
Yeah.
So I still owe 270. Let's just tack it back on. Let's just
You're just pushing it down.
let's just
further.
push it out,
Yeah.
right? Let's just add. I think that's the best option.
I think
Right?
so too. Yeah.
There's going to be another option. They're going to allow you to make installment payments. So let's use an example of $1,000 a month. So you missed 3 months worth of payments. So they give you forbearance for 3 months worth of payments, equivalent of $3,000, and they say, hey, let's take the $3,000. Let's add $300 a month to your payment over the next 10 months, right? At some point in the future.
Yeah.
So they're getting their $3,000 back.
And then you're caught back up to
right. And then
your
you're
original
schedule.
schedule.
You're caught back up, and maybe that's an option for people, right? Maybe it is. I think that's the second best option. And if you're
Probably not. I would say if you're probably trying to extend your mortgage, you probably can't afford that extra.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to
Yeah.
get at. That may be better for people that are trying to get help that really don't need it.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. And the third one is going to be, which I do not suggest. I think be very careful about this, but they're going to give you a 3 month, 2 month, 3 month, 4 month, 5 month, 6 month forbearance, depending on how you apply, and then say at the end. So let's say in month 4 you owe all of it at one time, right? Lump sum. I think that's a terrible idea. I think that's now some of these mortgage companies might not allow you to.
That's going to cause a lot of.
Oh, it is.
Well, I mean, most likely they could refinance to that point,
Yeah, but I think that this is
but not necessarily.
It's kind of a dirty little trick, and I can't pick on one mortgage company because I don't see anybody doing it, but I'm cautious here because what if they only give you the option? Look, we're gonna give you forbearance, a 3 month forbearance, but in the 4th month, you owe all of it, right? All that does
Yeah.
is delay.
This
a
creates
foreclosure.
another problem.
It
I
does.
think. Yeah.
And then they say, hey, guess what? We're going to rework your loan. I feel like this goes down a bad path. Hey, we're going to rework your loan. Today, this is what you have to do. And in 4 months, if you can't pay it, that's okay. But I think what happens in
But then
4
if you
months.
can't get qualified,
Yeah.
in 4 months, then you're maybe out of a house.
You know what they're going to do? They're going to say, hey, don't worry, we're going to work your loan. But you got to be late for you to qualify for any of us to relook at it. And then now you're crashing your credit. See,
Yeah,
I just feel like there's this deadly
that'll be bad.
path to go down. So, hey, guess what? It's better to negotiate the terms of the forbearance up front and get it in writing.
Right.
So you don't have a question mark in 3 months or 4 months, et cetera.
Yeah, and do make sure that they're not reporting you as past due.
That's an awesome point.
You
Get that in
It
writing.
would be better to struggle
Yeah.
than to ruin your credit.
No, if they're going to report you as current, that's a great point. You need to get it in writing. They're going to report you as current, so it doesn't affect your credit negatively.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Almost
So
just freezes your account for 3 months.
let me ask you, what do you think about people that are in the middle of like a refi right now?
I mean, it's probably a good thing to do if
Yeah.
you can do it. If you have good credit and you can refinance your house, it's a good way to have more resources available.
Yeah,
because we really don't know how long this will last.
That's right.
It could last 1 month. It's most likely 2 months.
Yeah.
But we could get to the end of the 2 months, and then they're going to tack another month on. So then then it gets really rough.
That's right. And
And I guess if you refinance your house, you can technically still get the 60 to 90 days.
right. Or even up to
Or up to 180, right?
180, yeah.
Yeah.
So in theory, if you can refi and take advantage of the lower interest rates right now, and I think they're lower, but they're not as low as they're going to be. And part of that's just a liquidity issue, right? For buying paper, essentially, with these banks are trying to move loans. But I feel like the rates are down, but they're actually going to get lower.
Well, that's true. It's probably a good time to refinance anyway because the rates are dropping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so-
I would imagine the rates will be really low after this.
Yeah, and most of the time, if you're refinancing, you time it right, you can miss a payment, legally miss a payment there without consequence, and then if things still aren't where they need to be, then you might be able to qualify for forbearance for 3 to 6 months. So it could be a really good time to kind of reposition. And again, these are what we were talking about. We're like, hey, if you guys are at home, you shouldn't be binge watching Netflix. You should be trying to figure out solutions to things going on in your life. And just the things we've talked about so far. There's a lot of things that people can do to be proactive about helping fix their own situation.
Yeah. Also, if you're a person that just has a job or a small business, you could use this time to figure out if there's something you don't like about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Or you don't like about your business, or you want to change. Now you can do the research that you need to do to find out how to make those changes.
That's right. And potentially, especially like the very first thing we talked about, the local business development programs, you've got access. If you want to start a business, let's say you don't own a business, say you're an employee today, right? What better time to put money into yourself and start a business?
That's true.
In my mind, to start
Yeah.
planning for a business, right? And we're going to get to this part in a second, but literally while the government is providing you resources to help during this thing that you had no choice over, you can start putting that money and that time, effort, and research back into yourself to pursue a passion, maybe to start a business.
Right.
That's awesome.
It's true.
So I think the mortgage thing. Now, you can't talk about the mortgage thing without talking about tenants. Okay? Rents are still due. Right? There's not anything out there that stopped a tenant from still having rent due. Now,
Well, that's kind of what this is for, though, to prevent those from being problems.
That's right.
It's really so people can pay their rent.
Yeah, I think so, and that's the key. That's the reason there's all these benefits out there. So we have properties, and here's the deal: the rent is still due. Now, I'm not heartless, and I think most landlords aren't. I think the key is communication. So
Some are.
Yeah. I think the key is communication, though. If you're a tenant, make sure you're communicating with the person that you rent from, right?
Right.
And the reality is, I know tenants that haven't been affected by this, right?
Yeah.
But they were making comments like, "Oh, there's no rent due, right?" Well, no, that's definitely not the case. The rent is still due,
Yeah.
right? But if you have tenants that are affected by it, I can tell you what I'm personally doing is I'm kind of doing the same thing that the government's offering. Essentially, is what can you pay first? Let's say the rent's $1,000 and they can pay $500. Well, then I'm taking that $500 and maybe I'm coming up with some type of payment plan on it, right? And maybe kicking it down the road 60 days and maybe splitting it across 10 months or something, right? I'm trying to come up with some
Or
option.
if you're a smaller landlord, maybe you can write it off.
Yeah, maybe.
Forgive it, but
Maybe.
depends.
It really just depends on where you're at. You mean if you're a larger one?
Well,
Because smaller ones may not be able to. Here's the reality:
it depends
is,
on the situation of the individual.
and not all mortgages qualify. So these are only federally rated and federally backed mortgages. So and guess what? Some landlords don't have mortgages, right? But your landlord still technically, legally is responsible for that mortgage, whether you pay or not. So
Well, realistically, these incentives should be enough to allow people to pay the rents.
exactly, I agree.
So I don't expect a lot of landlords to be lenient on rents.
Yeah, no, actually, the rent, technically there is no bill, there's no thing that says that rents are not due.
And even in businesses, there's a lot of, if they can get the money, there's a lot of money out there for that too.
No, that's right.
Now we did mention that a lot of companies may not get that money.
No, you're right. Well, there's only so much money to go around.
Yeah.
But so if I think you're a tenant, though, I think communication's key. If you're not affected, pay your rent. If you are affected, I think you should reach out to your landlord, have an open conversation, and I think you should work out some type of arrangement. The rent is still due. Now, are they going to evict you? Right now, no, they're not going to evict you. Not today. But in
2 months they may, though.
in 30 days, 40 days.
Yeah.
And guess what? You still legally owe the money, even if they don't evict you. Even if they're saying, "Hey, look, we're going to work," they still can take you to court and put it against your credit and ruin your credit history for an extended
You
period
may
of
have
time.
to file bankruptcy.
And potentially garnish wages, etc. So I think the key here is communicate. I think landlords will work with you if you need someone to work with. I think they will, and I think just work out something that everybody can live with, right?
I could see it being a bigger problem in some of the higher end
Oh yeah,
rental properties.
yeah.
Some of the higher rents.
Yeah, and there are people out there that have loans. I mean, I want you to think about this. There's a whole segment of loans out there that aren't federally rated. They're not federally backed, which means that those landlords qualified for no assistance, right?
Yeah.
Think about all the apartment complexes. I mean, like they're not getting this assistance, which
Right.
means if you don't pay your rent, you could literally be contributing to an entire organization that's going out of business, and that has a domino effect as well. So I think if you can pay it, pay it. If you can't, communicate, work out something that you can work with. And I've always been this way with tenants. Communication is key. Don't
Right.
wait
Yeah,
and not
always.
pay and not communicate, and then in the tail end go, "Oh, I didn't think I had to pay my rent."
Because that's not going to work.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, and then you're dealing with a pissed off landlord,
Yeah.
right?
And you're going to lose that battle.
No, eventually you might get away with it, and just like tenants that don't pay prior to this, you can get away with it depending on what state you live in for 2 or 3 weeks, up to like California, it might take you 2 or 3 months to get them out, but eventually you're going to pay the piper.
Right.
Yeah. So again, communicate, and then I think the biggest one that we save for last.
Well, while we're on real estate, though,
Yeah, go ahead.
For people that are buying a lot of that like to have rental properties, I think this is going to be an incredible time to buy more properties.
I think
After
so.
this is over, because I'm sure rates will be really low. There'll be a lot of people selling properties.
I agree. There's people selling them now.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good time to buy. I think maybe maybe the best time to buy rental properties since 2009.
Actually, it's funny you brought that up. We had some pending deals that we kind of tapped the brakes on just because you just don't know. There's unknowns. And we pushed out further, right? And you hate to be this way, but some of the buyers have come back actually and said, hey, actually, we're willing to reduce. Now, think about it. The stock market's at, let's say the stock market right now, depending on which stocks you're looking at, are 30, 40% off of what, and that's the way I look at it. It's a discount, right? It's a temporary reduction
Right.
and in that stock's valuation, right? So you can buy that stock at a discounted rate. Well, that's the same way with real estate right now. There's some real estate that you might be able to buy at a discounted rate, in theory, based on something that could go away or should go away in a few months, right? So I've actually got some people that have responded back and saying, hey, actually, we need, because of liquidity issues or whatever may happen, they need money, and they're willing to take a reduction in order to incentivize you to close, to continue to do the deal, right? But I do think you're right. I think over the next, honestly, probably year and a half, you're going to be seeing some really great real estate deals.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, because again, it's a liquidity thing. You know, some people that have all their money tied in real estate, the only way you get it is through, if you have tenants, you get it through rent, and if you don't have tenants, you get it through selling the property.
And some of these developers may go under too.
Yeah.
You know, some developers that are just stretched too thinly, they may just
To me, developers
let stuff go, and you have an opportunity to go in and snatch up some properties that were
right.
almost completed or.
Developers are almost speculators in my book sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of times you'll see that they get hit the hardest in things like this.
Oh yeah.
So.
You'll see a lot of. I'm sure we'll see a lot of projects that just stopped.
Yeah. I agree.
Were never completed.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility.
And it'll take a couple of years to build this back up too.
I think so. I think it's gonna take time.
Yeah.
This what we think is gonna take a month, 2 months to get through. When everyday people, when I don't want to say the word normal, but when regular citizens feel like things are back to normal,
It's far from it.
it's far from it.
And it's hard to even imagine the real impact this is having because, I mean, 80% of the economy at least is shut down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably trillions of dollars in business.
Oh, I'm
billions
sure.
for sure. I mean, billions
sure.
and billions and billions. Yeah,
I'm sure
hundreds of billions.
I'm sure I think you're right in the first one. I think this is a multi-trillion-dollar impact to the United States economy.
Or at least over the next several years.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing that everybody's talking about. So I hate to even bring this up, but it's this extra $600 per week, right?
Oh yeah.
This is one of the biggest things people are talking about. So I think here's the key: if you file for unemployment, right? You've had to file for unemployment. You get whatever the state's willing to give you. So in North Carolina, I believe it's $350. Yeah. In other states, I think New York's might be $500.
It's more. Yeah.
Yeah.
The higher the cost of living, the
That's
more
right.
they pay you.
So you can get $600 per week from the federal government, and that's for up to 13 weeks.
Now, is that in addition to the $350?
It is.
It's on top.
It's on top of it. So for up to 13 weeks, and that's a considerable amount of time. You know, I've heard actually that the 13 weeks could be extended. Right.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
sure if
so-
they extend this out, then all of this will be extended.
Yeah, so we're talking
Most
about
likely.
3 months plus right now that you can get $600 a week, in addition to whatever the states want to give you. And in North Carolina, you can collect, and every state you can collect unemployment right now for up to 39 weeks, which is a long time, So in North Carolina, in theory, you could get $350 a week from North Carolina for up to 39 weeks, and you could get $600 a week from the federal government for up to 13 weeks. So you could get $950 a week. You could physically make more unemployed than you were making when you were working.
Here's another problem I haven't really thought a whole lot about either, but this makes me think of it is a lot of these companies, these smaller companies, especially if they're factories and stuff like that, when they're closed for 2 months and they suddenly open back up and have to rehire everyone, it's going to be really tough to pay everybody
Yeah.
before they actually start producing revenue again because you put in the work before you get paid for it.
No, that's right.
So, and a lot of these companies, I'm sure they work on a 30-day,
Yeah, net 30, net 60
30,
something.
net
Yeah.
60. So they probably won't receive any money for the work they're producing for 30 to 60 days.
No, you're right.
But they're still going to have to pay all these employees, and your employees are always your biggest expense.
Oh, yeah.
So that's another concern. But maybe that's where the PPP comes in.
I think so, man, because you're exactly right. I think your employees and your taxes are always, between those two, you're lucky if you have anything left.
Yeah,
So
that's when you're winning when you.
Yeah. What's left? But so if you live in a state, it's theoretically possible for you to make more than you were making
Right.
as an employee,
Yeah.
which I think is crazy. And the state amount is usually a percentage of what you make, right? But the $600 per week from the federal government, I don't believe has anything to do with what you're making. So in theory, you can come out ahead.
So some people will do really well. And that's actually could be really good for the economy too.
It could be.
And
It could be.
You know,
Well,
we
and check this out.
talk about raising the floor.
That does, man.
I still don't trust the government to do it because
Yeah.
they're not very trusting with money. But in this case, you know, maybe that's what we'll see. It's a good. It'll be a good social experiment to see how it works.
Well, a big change for this too is this is not just employees, right? They've broadened it. This includes self-employed people, right? People that receive 1099. So whether you're an adult entertainer, a musician, you know, you're an Uber driver, a Lyft driver, you work security on the weekends, like you qualify now, and you never did before.
Right.
Right. So this is an awesome thing. Like this bridges that gap, and literally, I think this veil it pretty much covers everybody. So, you know,
Right.
depending on where you live, you're at least going to be entitled to up to the $600 a week from the government, but you can get from the federal government, but you can get whatever your state cap is as well. I think that there's a segment of society that's actually going to make. They're going to have more money and more resources than they had beforehand.
Plus, you get money for your children too, right?
Well, that's a whole different
For
thing.
dependents?
Those are the stimulus checks. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
So in addition to that, you can qualify for stimulus checks as an individual and I think it's based off of 2018's tax year. Don't quote me on that part. But as an individual, as an individual, it's up to $75,000. So at what point, me as an individual, I make 70, which I don't qualify, but if you made up to $75,000, you would qualify up to $1,200 per person, or up to $150 per couple. So if the way I understand it, if you made less than $150,000, you and your spouse would get $2,400 a month, plus up to $500 per child.
Which is great.
Which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens is after $150,000 as a couple or $75,000 individually, as you make more than that, let's say you made a fraction more than that, $10,000 or more than that, then what would happen is you wouldn't qualify for the full stimulus. So instead of maybe $1,200, maybe you get $1,100. Or if you had the call, instead of $2,400, let's say you made $200,000 a year, maybe you would only get $2,000, right? It does tier down based on how much more.
I was thinking the more you made, it actually went up.
No, it caps.
Okay. Or you would just get the cap.
Yeah, so once you hit, so up to 150, they'll give you 2,400. And here's the reason for that is they think if you're wealthier, if you're making $500,000 a year,
maybe you already have a nut set aside.
exactly,
Okay.
they're not giving it to you. And unless I'm explaining it wrong, I think that once you hit 150, every dollar
I
above
read
that
somewhere they
goes
had
down.
a tier that was above the $1,200 a person, like over $250 or something.
I don't know. I missed it if it did.
I mean, it seems kind of crazy, but then and then you think about some people that are in that tax bracket though that they're still strapped. Maybe they're not good with their finances.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Because
I think,
the whole point
I
of
think
this is to keep things as even as possible through this.
How does one get this stimulus? Is there something you got to apply for, or is it just come to you because of how the taxes are?
I think you have automatic qualifiers like unemployment, like you just said. If you're on Social Security right now, the government is already direct paying you. If you're on unemployment, the government's already direct paying you. And normally, unemployment is typically a state benefit, but because of the extra $600, now the Fed is jumping in with each state, and they've got access to your direct deposit information, right? So I think if you're on unemployment
and your tax information,
if you're on unemployment or you get Social Security, I think if you have some of these certain triggers, it's instant. You don't have to apply. Past that, I'm not really sure. I'm waiting for the information to come out. I haven't seen reliable information. I'm sure there's going to be a way for you to. It's probably going to be a few fill in the blank, a few questions, some type of online submittal.
Right.
You'll need to put in your direct deposit information, and then they're going to ask for stuff. They may ask for a certain. I can't imagine they're going to ask you for 2019 taxes since they've extended that out a few months.
Right. Sure.
But they're probably going to make you self-report a few things based on most recent information.
Sure.
And they're going to ask you potentially about your 2018 tax return, right?
Right.
And here's the thing.
You may have to do a P&L or something for
Yeah.
2019.
And maybe they make it easy to get, and then what they're going to do is they're going to catch it on the back end. Maybe it's a lot of self-reporting and not much verification up front.
Right.
But then what's going to happen is when you file your 2019 taxes, if you have gotten more money than you should have, you're going to owe it back.
Right.
Right? And I think that's probably what's going to happen because some of the things like the PPP, I think that's not necessarily tied to the credit of the company. It's tied to expenses, payroll expenses.
Right.
And some people won't use it correctly.
Right. So I think that's the key. I think it's just like they're going to go back in after the fact and audit, because right now they're going to be overwhelmed with applications. I think they're going to be pushing a lot of paper, but on the tail end, where it's going to really matter is when they go back to audit and check it. And they will, just like everything else. Oh, yeah. And I think you're going to have offenders. Unfortunately, we're going to fast forward a year, fast forward 2 years. You're going to have people that abuse the system. Unfortunately, they take advantage of these things, which takes benefits out of people that needed them.
For sure.
And people are going to, literally, we're going to fast forward. They're going to go to prison for this.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know it's coming.
Oh, yeah.
So, because some of these things, they're trying to put the money out so quickly, and when you do that, it's easier to commit fraud, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And you got crooks out there and criminals out there that are just going to try and scam the system, which is unfortunate, because that means a family or a business person that needed the money didn't get it.
Yeah, and maybe they go under.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're doing a lot of damage with that. But the stimulus checks, and Neil, I could be wrong. You guys do your research. I believe it at $75,000 individually and at $150,000 as a couple, you would go from $1,200 individually or $2,400 as a couple, and it starts to lower as that amount goes up.
Right.
And it goes to zero eventually, per the way I know it. And again, $500 per child. And again, as you make over a certain amount, I think it goes down. So in theory, an individual might be able, let's take a North Carolina citizen, they might get $350 a week from North Carolina, $600 per week from the federal government. They could be making $950 weekly, right? And on top of that, if $1,200 a month as an individual, $2,400 a month as a family, plus up to $500 per child. This is huge.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, like you said, some people will be making more money through the relief program than they make normally.
No, and so let's go back to
which I think is just good for the economy, because most of that money is going to go right back into the economy.
It is. So if you're a renter, between a single renter, $1,200 a month, you better pay your rent. If you're receiving unemployment, and again, now that so many even self-employed people can draw unemployment, if you can get up to $950, or some states, I can see numbers as high as, like, say, $1,200 a month. Or $1,200 a week, I'm sorry. If you get $1,200 a week, if you can get $1,200 a month, $2,400 a month, if you get all this money coming in, it's designed for you to maintain the status quo at minimum, if not do better than that.
I think the upper middle class, from a rent perspective, I think the people the rents that will be, the landlords that will struggle with this issue are going to be people that have rents that are around $2,000 a month and higher, because those people, they have higher incomes.
Yep.
But they're also maybe not going to be as eligible for some of the programs.
Yeah.
And their income's going to be cut so drastically. If they don't have a savings, which they should, but if they don't, those are the people that are going to, maybe they're living way above their means.
Yeah.
They have some fancy apartment or.
I know a guy that's got a house in Florida that he supposedly rents for $50,000 a month, and
like that.
His tenant just told him he wasn't paying this month.
Well, there you go.
And he actually said it in a very negative way, basically. Sounds like he's not paying this month or next month, and that his whole thing's going under, and pretty much good luck evicting me, which he'll get evicted.
He'll get evicted.
Yeah. But it sounds like this guy's desperate. So a guy that can rent a house for $50,000 a month, I know most people wouldn't pity that guy, but at the same point, what it sounds like to me is that guy
pity the landlord a little bit, though.
Yeah, 100% pity the landlord. But that guy's going under, meaning that whatever it is he was doing, deriving income, his whole business is gone.
Yeah, he's filing bankruptcy.
Exactly. And a few weeks ago, this guy thought he was on top of the world. Now, he wasn't really, because he was paying $50,000 a month in rent. He's an idiot. He should own the building. But, that's my personal opinion.
Unless you're a billionaire or something, yeah.
Yeah. Well, then you should be paying your rent.
You own the property that you're renting.
If the world goes to shit in 2 weeks and you can't pay your bills, you weren't wealthy.
That's true.
You were living paycheck to paycheck. You're no better off. I don't care if it's $50,000 a month or $1,000 a month. You're no better off than the guy living paycheck to paycheck. You're selling yourself a fake dream.
The wealthiest people right now are just taking a vacation.
That's exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, they're trying to plan for their people, and they're trying to just wait. Listen, I can tell you, and I don't mean this in a
or it's a good
way.
opportunity to make some changes.
It is, man.
Yeah, restructure.
Yeah, you're going to see it. And I would say, so you were talking earlier about the higher incomes. I feel like the wealthier people, a lot of these incentives that I'm seeing, most of these, and it's funny to say a small business is under 500 people.
Yeah, because 500 people is not that's small.
That's a
pretty big business.
That's a considerable business. But you'll notice that I feel like this, and some people use the term bailout, but this is for middle class America. I think this hits it home. This hits everybody, but a lot of these things we've talked about today are definitely designed to protect the middle class, and
100%, yeah.
And I feel like they've done an awesome job. I mean, it feels like they've covered a lot of different angles. It really has. So I don't know. I'm impressed with it.
I'm a little concerned about what may be in that legislation, though, to pass this.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in.
I read quite a bit of
there's
things.
lot of stuff.
I didn't read. I mean, I read, let's say 80 to 100 pages of what I felt like pertained to me. But there was, I mean, I don't know, 800 pages of
sure,
things.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I tried to really focus
I'm sure there's
in.
some nonsense in there.
I'm sure there is.
sure.
I'm sure there. Well, and then and this is, we're talking today based off what's happened up to this point. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we went through 3 rounds of things to get to this point. There could be another round where additional
Right.
benefits come out, and it could further expand upon this. But I feel like this is a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Huge step in the right direction. So the key, though, is going to be doing your research and making sure that if you need the benefits, that you are applying for the benefits you can get.
Right. Yeah.
And
use your accountant.
Exactly. Your accountant and your attorney. If you don't have an accountant, you don't have an attorney, you need to reach out to local business development programs. You need to reach out. If you have friends or family, be careful getting advice from friends or family. If you own a business and your friends or family don't ask them for advice. Don't do it.
And you don't have to have an attorney for this. You just have to have a good accountant.
Yeah,
Really.
I agree. Well, and the only reason I say attorney is
If you can afford it.
if you can afford it, you
Yeah.
might want to have. Again, your attorney shouldn't be attorney shouldn't be running your business. Your accountant shouldn't be running your business. They should be giving you advice based on their expertise.
Yeah.
I don't ask my accountant how to run my business or how to be an entrepreneur, be a business person, because that's not their business is accounting.
And if your accountant's not familiar with how these programs work, you have the wrong accountant.
exactly, if your accountant,
You need a new accountant.
if we've told you more today than your accountant knows, you probably need, no offense, but you probably need to go find another accountant.
Yeah. Because they should be up on this by now.
If you go to your bank and your bank has a big question mark about some of these things, you probably need to go to a different bank. And it's not a stab at it, but I think some banks are kind of throwing their hands up in the air and they're saying, just go to SBA.gov. Just they're pushing it to the SBA, right? They're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They're understaffed. They're overwhelmed. They're not sure exactly how it works themselves. And in their defense, essentially, this was rolled out very quickly.
Yes.
And they're just being told, hey, figure it out. And you got these promises of, hey, we're going to get you funds in 3 days. The $10,000 of the EIDL, we're going to have you the funds in 10 days or 3 days. And I'm like, oh, yeah, good luck.
Yeah, we've never seen a bailout for small businesses either.
No, that's true.
Or the middle class.
Yeah, I think this is huge.
Yeah.
I think they really put some solid work in here.
Yeah.
I really do. So I'm happy with it. I feel like a lot of people were really concerned. We had a lot of staff. And our staff, I felt like, because we basically said, look, we're going to help subsidize this. We're going to help you guys get through this. But those are our key staff that have been with us the longest. But there were a lot of staff that we were getting feedback. And then some of our security companies that we use, they're 1099 employees, our 1099 people. We have a lot of 1099 they're key to the operation of our business, but they're not technically our employee. And how do you help those people? Well, this solved that for them. A lot of them are sleeping easy after this announcement.
That's true. Yeah. A lot of people.
Yep. So I felt like this was, they really did a good job. And think about an Uber driver and a Lyft driver. I mean, they're not employees.
Right.
Right. They're
they're
that
self-employed.
career came out of nowhere just in the last few years, you'd feel like, and it just took the world by storm, but they're self-employed. Technically, they're 1099 employees.
Right. Yeah.
So this was huge for them because guess what? People aren't using Uber and Lyft right now.
No.
So,
no way.
I mean, so that whole industry just dried up.
Yeah.
A lot
of others.
So I feel like there's a lot of things out there. I encourage you guys, do your research, do your homework, talk to a good CPA, and help your friends, help your family. Don't take benefits if you don't need them.
Yeah.
If you do need them, that's what they're there for. Definitely don't commit fraud. If you have to lie to get money, then you're not entitled to it. Come on, use some common sense, guys. Don't get yourself in trouble. Just because you can get away with something today does not mean you get away with it forever. And remember, it's not a crime that doesn't hurt somebody. There's a limited amount of funds. So even if you can get away with it, you're still depriving somebody else that's in need. So from a moral perspective, think about that.
Yeah. Right.
So,
And
I'm sure there's so much more we missed, but
oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
yeah,
I think they covered a lot of the main points.
yeah. So, it's a lot.
I
In
guess
a few
that's it,
weeks,
man.
we'll have another one, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
figure it out then.
Another update.
Yeah, man, we'll definitely do an update to this. And, hey, guys, and in the comments below, if there's something we got wrong, we apologize. Again, this is our opinion. This is, we're not accountants. We're not attorneys. It's our opinion. This is research that we got together. There's a lot of things that are ever evolving. Some of these
Right.
things changed from last night to today. But if there's something we got wrong, feel free to correct us below.
Yeah, leave it in the comments.
Yeah, we'd love
and, and if you enjoyed it, like and subscribe.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Share it.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you guys.